Mississippi,
And
three
we're
Mississippi,
live.
four.
We are live.
Live. Is it live or is it
Live.
Memorex? Anyone who remembers that commercial is dating themselves. Is it live or is it Memorex? And by the way, that goes back to the 8-track tape era. Hello and welcome to Of the People live, and I am Robert Chernin with
Ericka Redic.
Hello, Ericka.
Hello, Robert.
So, with all the news and Hunter Biden is guilty, we're going to get to that in the show. And anybody who thinks we're going to let that one pass has got another thing coming. But if you think Hunter Biden's having a bad day, okay, my whole definition of bad day just changed. There was recently this article where in Indonesia, a husband was looking for his wife, couldn't find her. She had gotten swallowed by a python. No lie. I'm not laughing at it, at the misfortune of the family. It's just you can't make this stuff up, right?
How did they find her?
Well, the villagers went looking for her. I think it was Sumatra. Don't quote me on the island, but it's in Indonesia. And they went looking for her, and they found, and pythons abound, right? They found a python that had this large distended stomach. They killed the python. They opened up the stomach. And the first thing they found was her head. So if Hunter Biden thinks he's having a bad day, this is my definition of a bad day. And we're not making light of the tragedy for the family. It's just, living in sort of civilization.
You know what was not on my bingo card for 2024 was death by python swallowing. Okay.
Death by python swallowing. And apparently it's usually about once a year. If you look up pythons, and they can grow up to 32 feet and several hundred pounds, right?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it brings me back to sort of Indiana Jones and his thing with snakes. Either that, or I start really rethinking the story of Adam and Eve as told in the Bible. But just saying. And by the way, if you really, people think they're having a bad day, I want to move from there to my next favorite topic, which is, where's the Billy Joel song? New York State of Mind. So I know we're jumping around, but we got to get to this Hunter Biden thing. So New York State of Mind, New York, the Metro Transit Authority, the MTA, because they now have all these fare hoppers and gate hoppers and all of that, is looking to hire, they've put an ad out to hire a psychiatrist that they're going to pay $1 million to figure out the psychological profile about why people are jumping the turnstiles. No lie.
You know what? I quit.
Wait, come on. Gets better. If you think you got a problem, we should send you want to solve the problem, send those fare jumpers or turnstile jumpers to Indonesia and see how they fare. But no pun intended with fare, right? So New York MTA is there are 5 million daily riders. About 900,000 out of the 5 million skirt their fares and jump the turnstiles or sneak through. That's 13.6% who are not paying.
Yeah.
And therefore, according to the MTA CEO Jano Lieber, we have to win or else the system is gone, which means another example of two things. Number one, pay us the money you owe us, right? Follow the rules, even though they don't follow the rules. Yeah. Or we're going to find out why you commit these crimes and jumping turnstiles and don't pay what you owe. So we're going to spend $1 million to hire a psychiatrist. Come on, you can't make this up.
Okay, you don't need. Okay, look, New York. Give me the $1 million. I already know the answer.
State of mind, right?
It's because you let them. Okay, look, give me the $1 million, bro. I just solved your problem. Get some cops down there, enforce the law, okay, and then see what happens.
No. Wait. So the MTA said in their proposal that they asked for candidates with research and practical behavioral change experience who come from a variety of disciplinary backgrounds, including but not strictly limited to behavioral economics, behavioral science, psychology, anthropology. But here's the best part. Here's what the MTA has to say. No, it gets better.
Oh,
Historic approaches to solving this problem have identified punitive enforcement as the antidote to rising fare evasion. Physical barriers, fare inspection, penalties, and messages emphasizing the potential consequences of evading the law are the most commonly used tactics. However, these costly and sometimes controversial methods have had limited success in reversing the upward trend in the riders who do not pay, and they are now looking for a quote unquote an avant-garde solution to an expensive problem. Come on.
I mean, come on. You can't. They can't be. This is I mean,
come on.
I don't. Oh, I can't even like this is right? Okay. So my first thought was these people are stupid, and then we always say, oh, "Are they really stupid?"
No,
I don't know.
No.
You know, like no. This is look at what. No, this is how stupid they think New Yorkers are. They think New Yorkers are so stupid that they can't figure out what the problem is. So it's just another money laundering scheme to give $1 million to somebody's friend. They just made this up.
No, there's rising crime in the subway. Look. This is like Pavlov's dog, right? It's Pavlovian, right? If you get away with it, you're going to do it more, and people break the rules. And I'm sure if I were AOC, I'd say, well, they're doing it because they can't afford to ride the subway, so they skirt the fares. But look, I don't want to. But it's one of those things. It's really simple. You didn't have this problem when Rudy Giuliani,
right,
America's mayor, was there cracking down and enforcing the laws, and you respected the police and people followed the rules. And what's the word? There were consequences if you broke the law, right? There's that word again. But in any event,
dare you?
Speaking of consequences, let's roll them, Smokey, because we don't want to take up time with giving New York too much attention.
You got it.
Hello, and welcome to Of the People. Today, return of the nation state. Not only do we have the Hunter Biden verdict, but we have Europe in a panic because this week is also elections for the EU, the European Union, and there are clear signs that there is so much rising anger amongst the populace, let's call it the populist anger, that there's going to be a hard move away from so-called centrist policies in Europe of the last 8 to 10 years that emphasize open borders, migrant immigration, Green New Deal, and those kinds of things. So it's pretty simple at this point. Are we seeing a return of the nation state? So what is the nation state? So a nation state basically is, in common parlance, borders, language, culture. Thank you, Michael Savage, right? Where a country and the people in the country get to define their values and what's important to them. Very simple. We have moved away from that in the last, certainly 15 years or so, certainly since Obama. And I think Europe's moved away from it for a longer period of time. But if you want to go to what a nation state really is, we refer to Encyclopedia Britannica, which says that a nation state is a sovereign policy, i.e., a state that is ruled in the name of the community of citizens who identify themselves as a nation, and the self-determination of the members get to define the territory and the state as belonging to their homeland. In other words, America for Americans. It's not that simple, right? And we've seen this in the last, again, 15 or 20 years. You saw it in 2016 with the election of Donald Trump. You saw it with Brexit. You saw it with Bolsonaro a few years later, elected as the leader of Brazil. You saw it with Meloni being elected in Italy, Orban in Hungary. You now see it with Milei being elected in Argentina. And now there's very strong signs that you're now going to see it even beyond the EU elections, which will take place this entire week. In Germany, certainly Macron is in trouble in France, as is Sunak, who's in trouble in England. But the real question in all of this is, when did national pride and love of country become a bad thing, because now what we're seeing is they're attacking nationalism and they're attacking the nation state, right? And they're weaponizing the language as they always do. Now the term nationalism is being weaponized. Remember, we started with white nationalism. We went to Christian nationalism. The new boogeyman term of the month is conservative nationalism. And that's what you're going to hear. So I want to know when love of country and pride about your country became such a bad thing. And why is it always that they say moving to the right? Because to me, the opposite of right is not left. The opposite of right is wrong. And why do you never hear moving to the extreme left? You only hear the extreme right. Oh, and these parties have their roots in Nazism or Mussolini's fascism in Italy. So this is really simple. The people, we the people, of the people, you the people, we the people are sick and tired of being told by our betters what to think, what to believe, and what our values are. And if we don't share their values, to be silent. And of course, we get the privilege of paying the tab for these policies and paying their lifestyle, right? Because it is, after all, OPM, other people's money that's at stake here. Really, it's our money that's at stake here. This is really simple. Troglodytes of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your betters, or the people who are better off than you are. And who knows? You may not just save yourself, you may just save the nation state and your nation in the process. And that's the monologue. Joining us, my lovely co-host for all things politically incorrect, Ericka Redic. Hello, Eric. Sorry, I had to go.
Robert.
I had to go off on it because they're in it, right? Their knickers are in a twist. Oh my God, Europe is vaulting to the right, or it's being torn to, and then you start looking at the terms, right?
Yeah,
alt-right, Christian nationalism, now conservative nationalism, extreme right. Everything is right.
Scary.
And I'm like, well, yeah, but to me, it's like, hey, the opposite of right is wrong. I'd rather be right than wrong, right? So what am I missing here?
That is right. Well, first of all, I was listening to the news the other day about all the European nations basically kind of moving conservative. And I thought back to an episode we did a while ago where you were talking about how it's not just our election year, that all of Europe, all these places around the world are also having elections. And if this is not a referendum on the nonsense that we've been seeing, I don't know what is. And I was nervous when we talked about it in that episode, and now I'm excited.
Well, look, we're not out of the woods yet. I think, and I want to say it was the movie Network where he says, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. Right. I think that's what you're seeing in these various countries. Right.
Yep.
Because these policies of open borders, how's that working for you? Right. Borders, language, culture. We're talking about nationalism. Pride of country means that you're allowed to define your borders, and you're allowed to define who comes in and who is, and America's allowed to define what it is to be an American, not some elite institution, and certainly not the EU.
That's right.
Because who's pushing this, and they have for the last 15 years. And look, the EU is not going to lose, or the European Parliament, right, is not going to lose the majority of these so-called centrists. They're not really centrists. They're just centrist because they call themselves centrist, and the media who's in the tank with them calls them a centrist. So I have here a political article, right? The labels are amazing to me, right? So in referencing what's happening in Germany, they say, across the Rhine, the far-right Alternative German Party, whose lead candidate recently told an Italian newspaper there were good people to be found among the Nazi SS troops. Now, who does that sound like? What other
Donald Trump? Good people on both sides.
Right. right? So it's the same ploy that they use. And look, maybe this guy said it or not. You know, the thing I'm taken back with, because to me, there's such a failure of journalism in all of this to report the news. So Congressman Byron Donalds was recently on some MSNBC show, whatever Reverend Al Sharpton, is the host of the show. And Donalds had come out before and made a reference to the Jim Crow era, right? With slavery and post-slavery, where blacks in the country really, struggled for civil rights, and it was really, I mean, it was a horrible time, if you were a Black American. But one of the comments that he made was that at least during the Jim Crow era, Black families were together and they weren't fatherless, right? As is much more the case today. And and again, it's the Charlottesville comment. It's the one about the Nazis. And so they are roasting him, saying, you're saying the Jim Crow era was better for Black people. He's like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying,
it's such a distortion of what he said.
No. It's intentional misinterpretation. It's an intentional misinterpretation because what they want to do is they want to demagogue and demonize and divide.
But see, that's the thing is, I that can't just be a misinterpretation. Like, you are intentionally lying to the American people about what this man said. No reasonable person, because I went back and listened to it. I heard the comments, and then I found the clip of the whole conversation and what he said. And I'm like, you have to be so dishonest, and you have to be such a cruel and mean person. I mean, it is the intention
thank you for choosing your words carefully, because I thought something else was coming out.
That's why I'm like, I'm trying not to cuss, but demonize, demagogue, right? Like, it is with intention, and it is such a lie.
Yeah, but what Sharpton did is an egregious example, but a transparent example of cherry picking. It's what most of the journalists do, but it's the insidious stuff that you see as not only the country but the world. Look, there's this rising populism, and you're going to return to the nation state. And by the way, there's an old expression that good fences make for good neighbors. Right? Yeah. That doesn't mean that screw your neighbor and I don't like you. It means there has to be boundaries. There has to be. I mean, and by the way, if you go through therapy and all those other lovely things, they're going to tell you that establishing boundaries in one's life between relationships is important for mental health. But so you can have boundaries there. You can have boundaries if you live in Hollywood and you're in a gated community. You can have boundaries if you're in the White House. But God forbid our country has boundaries, right? But it even extends to this insidious stuff. So again, this is a Politico article. It says, as Europe votes, a populist wave surges. But then they go on to say things like, where is it? There's a couple great lines here. In recent day, far-right parties have been showing startling strength at the polls. And there's a variety of other references here to far-right or alt-right, or without any justification. And people accept this crap because look, it's no different than January 6th, which we'll talk about the Pelosi video. Did you see the Pelosi video? That's all over the internet.
Talk about misinterpretation of words being said. The spin in the interview on, I think it was MSNBC after, I was just like, bruh, come on.
Wait, did you see, back up. Did you see the video that's all over the internet?
Yes. Okay. Of Nancy basically admitting that January 6th was her fault.
Well, the fact that there wasn't security there, right?
Correct. Okay. Yep. I'm sorry. YouTube. Okay. Let me fix it. Let me be clear. Nancy Pelosi said in the video.
You're going to get us another strike?
I am. Oh my God. I'm going to get us kicked off of YouTube.
Okay. Well, two things come to mind to that. Okay. Number one, the January 6th committee never aired that video. That's right. Again, cherry picking to the public what they see to try to control public opinion. Number two, I have never seen a rapid response team function as well as her. She was on MSNBC on warp speed when that damaging video came out.
Wild.
But why didn't, again, look, politicians are politicians, but it is the failure of journalism to not report the facts or only report partial facts or to cherry pick things based on their ideological bias. That makes me crazy when you read this. And, you know, I mean, we've touched on so many things so quickly in this segment, but
Robert, who's the guy we were just talking about him? He's married to the woman who is
James Carville and Mary Madeline.
James Carville literally came out and said, it is okay to not be honest in journalism right now because things are so dangerous. And, you know, Trump is such a danger to democracy. I'm like, bruh, you're literally saying it's okay to lie by omission if you're a journalist because things are so dire right now. That is such a dangerous precedent to set.
You know, I wrote an article some years ago called An Honest Broker. And it really went after the press, not calling fake news, but to say, you know, this was the Fourth Estate was a sacred obligation going back to Edward R. Murrow, right? The father of modern journalism, to report the facts and let us figure out what we believe and what we feel based on the facts. And right now, all you really get is not only opinion journalism, you get ideologically decided journalism. And look, some of it is the fault of the listeners because we now have. Am I there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Just keep going.
Just keep going. You know what? I'm like the Energizer Bunny. Hey, going and going and going. But we now have designer news, right? Where we get news in the echo chamber only of that which
of our choice
that reinforces what we already believe, right? So everyone from Stephanopoulos to, I forget the new woman on Meet the Press, I forget her name, to even Chris Wallace. I mean, it's this gotcha journalism, and the concept of journalistic integrity is so hard to come by. So Eli Honig, who's a reporter at CNN, put out that editorial about the Trump trial in New York and why it was such a farce, basically, and why it was such a travesty of justice. And he got castigated on the left because how dare he not preach the religion that Trump is bad. It's okay if you break all the rules just to get Trump. It's amazing to me. But I mean, I wanted to come back to this though, because it's the concept of nationalism that I think is the important thing to understand. And we can, you know, kvetch about the, you know, lack of journalistic integrity all day long. They ain't going to change at this point.
No,
right.
Definitely.
They are who they are, but you have to understand. But what do you think about this rise in nationalism? This, not just in this country, but you're now seeing it really take hold, certainly in Europe and even in South America, not quite in Asia yet, but what do you think?
You know, human beings have to have a sense of belonging. It's one of the things that is inherent in our nature to really thrive, a community, a sense of belonging. And like it or not, our country is our community on a macro level, right? Like you have your family, then you have your town, your city, your state, whatever. And you have your country, and that matters to people. And people are very proud about their national heritage, about where they're from. Well, maybe not everybody, you know, but many of us, most people, have an inherent desire to preserve that which is theirs. And so when you start doing weirdo crap like having the EU, and then you just start importing tons of immigrants who have nothing to do with your culture, don't care about your history, think that it sucks, tells you that you're a bigot and this and that you have to accommodate them, like, human beings are naturally going to reject that. And
that makes sense. So I'm going to give you one other thing that they're about to reject.
Ooh.
Because I know you didn't know this.
Tell me.
Not only is Europe on a precipice of sort of a populist uprising, but the European Union just finalized and passed a bill called the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, or CSDDD. You know that triple D? Really means demagogue, demonize, and divide. Yeah, I don't know. But so this is a mandate that anyone who does business in Europe, including U.S. companies, large U.S. companies, have to adhere to their ESG standards, right? Which is the whole biodiversity, all this other stuff. So basically, mandates that large businesses reduce and reverse biodiversity loss, limit water and land consumption, prohibit certain kinds of disinformation, guarantee rights for labor unions, and adopt climate transition plans that phase out fossil fuels. So now they're only going after large companies, but the problem is they have extended it to the supply chain of these companies.
Oh God. Oh.
Which means that like the farmer who gives potatoes to McDonald's, which is what the article references, has to also show they're in compliance. So you're now and the reason I bring this up is because America doesn't know about this, but the citizens of Europe do. That's one of the reasons they're up in arms, is all this crap. It's bad enough that multiculturalism is this failed experiment.
Yeah.
Right. But this mass migration, open borders policy combined with this, this climate change, Green New Deal regulations that they are suffocating the average person within Europe is why all this is happening. And again, troglodytes of the world unite, because nationalism is on the rise again, and it's not a bad thing.
That's right.
They're telling you it's a bad thing. Well, nationalism led to Nazism. Well, nationalism led to fascism. Well, that's true. Anything in its extreme leads to probably not a good outcome. Right?
Nationalism,
but no. Nazism is called National Socialism. That's the full name, National Socialist Party. Right.
Yeah, but nationalism also saved Europe because it was a national pride in America that drove us to defeat them. I'm sorry I interrupted you, Robert.
That's okay.
It just drives me insane.
So anyway, the return of the nation state and the rise of nationalism. Elections are going to be over in the EU by Sunday. Let's see what happens. But my guess is the centrist parties will still be in the majority, but it's going to be a really thin margin. And then we're going to see what happens in the fall.
Yeah.
In France, in Germany, and in Britain. Actually, France just called snap elections, so we'll see. Back to you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of nation states, let's all pray for Europe to vote the right way, and let's pray for Israel as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got the Israel Appreciation Day coming up this fall. Let's hear more.
September 18th. Why Israel Appreciation Day? Because no one is telling the Israel story about why Israel's existence is so important, not just as a Jewish state and not just as an ally of the United States, but for all the positive achievements Israel has contributed to the world in science, technology, medicine, human rights, religious freedoms, rule of law, democracy, and so on. We need to start winning the public relations information war and change the narrative, especially among our younger generations. We need to get the information out there and arm those people who understand the seminal importance of Israel to the world. And being the Jewish homeland doesn't begin to tell that story of why Israel is so important. It's something we all can come together on, and honestly, it's something we all must come together on. It is imperative the general public understands the nature of the very special relationship between Israel and the United States and Israel's importance to the world. So please join us on September 18th in Washington, D.C. as we celebrate Israel Appreciation Day. You'll also be able to find us live on all the streaming channels, including Roku, Apple TV, Dish Network, and others. Because never again is now.
That's right.
Such important event. And our goal is to reach millions across the country. It's really, remember, it's not how many people are going to be in the theater as we film this live TV event. It's the reach across the country to try to start changing the narrative that's out there. And frankly, there's only one side talking. Speaking of nation state, if there is one country in the world that knows its identity, imperfect as it is, imperfect as every person is, imperfect as every nation is, the state of Israel is a nation state. They know what it is to be a nation. They're proud of their country. They disagree on many things, right? But did you also see something to celebrate? 4 more hostages were rescued a couple days ago, and there were, I mean, amazing, right? This is now. There's been an offer on the table for a ceasefire from Israel to Hamas for a couple weeks now. The first time they turned it down because part of the offer was that Hamas had to disarm.
Yeah,
that wasn't acceptable. But Sinwar, who is the leader of, I think it's Yahya Sinwar, if I get the pronunciation right, is just in the news today, right? Because now they're all saying, oh, they killed all these people in Gaza. First of all, let's be really clear. If anyone's to blame for the deaths in Gaza, it's Hamas when they launched the attack on October 7th. It's really simple. None of these people would have been dead if you didn't attack Israel on October 7th. End of discussion. But Sinwar, who is the leader of Hamas in Gaza, doesn't happen to live there, by the way. He lives in Qatar, as far as I believe, came out and basically said 2 things. This is as of today. He says that we have Israel right where we want them in terms of peace negotiations, the fact that there's mounting criticism, but that the deaths in Gaza were, quote, reason. Let me get this right so I don't do this. The deaths in Gaza were necessary sacrifices. So talking about and we can debate the numbers, but talking about the death in Gaza of all the Palestinians that the world, other than the Israel, countries that support Israel, are up in arms over, including the Biden administration. You now have the leader of Hamas in Gaza saying that they were basically acceptable losses. Help me here.
Well, here's,
I mean, amazing.
I think this, my first thought when I heard that was, I want to air that to all the pro-Hamas protesters all over the country, interrupting pride parades and getting, blocking traffic and, making it so people can't graduate from college and the whole thing. I want them to hear it. And I want to ask them, if they don't care about their own people, why do you care about their people?
Well, first of all, you're assuming that they actually know what it is they're protesting. Most of them are low information voters, and they don't know what they're, or they're low information human beings, and they don't know what they're protesting. I mean, look up on Twitter. I think it's called Gaza University. It's a guy who goes around and he asks all these people, and he goes, well, why are you doing this? And when they're like, well, we don't know, because we thought it was a good cause. They have no idea. And then when he says, well, do you know if you're supporting, do you know what from the river to the sea means? And he asks all these questions about knowledge and intelligence. And, well, do you know you're supporting terrorism and death? And they're like, no, we didn't know that. So you just sit there and wonder. But the other thing that strikes me in all of this is, again, the lack of journalistic integrity and honesty in reporting the facts, because they're now taking, well, first of all, in terms of journalism, there were several now reporters from Al Jazeera, who Al Jazeera denies it, of course, that were obviously not only reporters for Al Jazeera, but they were militants for Hamas, including 3 of the 4 hostages were rescued from a home of a journalist where they were being held captive. I love when I leave you speechless, by the way.
Well, you know what? I have to, honestly, I am not even a little bit surprised, because you think about and here's the reason I'm saying it. You're hearing the news reports that you're hearing are so wildly different, right? And it's like, okay, Israel obviously is going to do news reporting, and it's going to make them look better, right? It's their team. They're going to make their team look better. The Palestinians or Hamas, they're going to make their team look better. And I understand that. But Oh, so like none of the atrocities are true, even though you guys had videos, you posted videos of yourself doing the atrocities, but somehow Israel reporting on it, they're lying. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like, it's been so obviously bullcrap that's been coming out of their reporting that it doesn't surprise me that they're part of the problem.
right, but you know what my real takeaway from all of this is? This is sort of Robert being snarky and a smartass, right? Is when I read the story, my first reaction was, so there really are hostages,
I
right?
oh
Because it's been, what do we? I forget the number of days. I can look it up, but I mean, we're at like 200 days or whatever it is, and
yes.
there is an absence of reporting in the U.S. media about the hostage. Let me ask you a question: how many hostages are still held? Do you know?
I actually don't know.
Okay,
I
130.
actually don't know
There's still 130 hostages. Let's see. Let me get
that
my
we're aware
numbers right.
of.
Israel says there are 130 hostages remain, with about a quarter of them believed to be dead. So there's 130 hostages still held. And where is the U.S. media? Like I said, my attitude is, oh, so there really are still hostages. And I'm
Yeah.
old enough to remember the Iran hostage crisis when President Carter was president, and how quickly they gave the hostages back when Reagan came in, based on the rhetoric and the clear statements from Reagan that said, hey,
Yep.
new sheriff in town when I get sworn in. But there is literally no coverage on the hostages. The hostages should be front and center on the newspaper every single day of the New York Times. Here are the hostages. Oh, and by the way, how many Americans are still hostage?
I was just going to ask, how many Americans are still hostage?
Supposedly 7, right? But 1 is too many. So there's so many mixed emotions here for me, because I mean, look,
and
maybe
hold on. Think about this, Robert. How many last year we covered the fact that they traded like some awful terrorist for to get Brittany Griner back from Russia. She actually went over there, committed a crime, and got locked up. And look at all the fanfare to get that broad back here. And yet,
well,
Hamas can have.
I have one name for you: Bo Bergdahl. Right, during the Obama years, right? He was the soldier that transitioned from a man to a woman. Who, we gave up how many political prisoners to get him back?
Yep.
So, look again. Let's stay with sort of, I think, the two things that are relevant here is, number one, so we really do have hostages.
Yes.
Why is the media not reporting it? Why aren't people calling out the media to do your job? There are 130 hostages, and people are worried about all the deaths in Gaza. And I agree with you that 1 death is too many. But the people, an organization that bears responsibility for the deaths in Gaza, is Hamas, because they launched the war on October 7th to begin with.
That's
right. And then you have the leader in I shouldn't laugh, but you have the leader in Gaza saying, well, these are acceptable sacrifices. Tell that to the families in Gaza. Tell that. And then you have the whole problem with the journalists who are leading double lives as a journalist as well as a terrorist. Right. Maybe that's a new profession. Journal terrorism. How would that be? Journalistic terroristic?
Well, actually, it still works out. Terror journal.
No, journo terrorism.
It's
journo terror. I think it's journo terrorism, but it's just, and the lack of integrity by the press to call this out. And look, you can go to UNRWA, right? UN Relief Workers Association. They were held in their hospital too. That's after we documented in the press, some, honest brokers in the press documented that the power supply into the tunnels that they found, and I think this was in southern Gaza, I don't really remember, were in the UNRWA headquarters. It's like Peter Sellers in the Pink Panther, right? Where, he comes in under a false nom de plume and says, well, we're just a TV repairman. Don't mind these cables we're running down to the tunnels.
Pay no mind. Lord Redic said Joy Reid is a journo terrorist.
As much as I am not a Joy Reid fan, and I believe that she is incendiary and she is a she's a religious zealot, basically. She's a political zealot, in my opinion, because she is just so vitriolic and she is so hateful and spiteful. But I cannot put the word terrorism on her, because when I say journo terrorism, it is people who double as a journalist and also commit actual terrorist acts. So I can't quite go there, right? I'm close, but I can't quite go there.
That's what she probably isn't holding hostages, probably.
Right.
But here, I don't know.
Well,
you
know
never
what this
know
really
about
is.
people.
Wait a minute. You do realize that all the reporting is out of Israel. I mean, any reporting that reflects accurately on Israel is any reporting that reflects poorly on Israel is accurate, and any reporting that reflects poorly on Hamas is, wait for it, what is it? It is Russian disinformation. Come on. I mean, the Russians clearly have a disinformation campaign.
Here's
to make it's Russian disinformation.
This
come on, I had to throw that in there.
Oh my God, I hate these people so much.
Don't you think it's Russian disinformation? I mean,
it's got to be. Everything is Russian disinformation, Robert. Everything.
Well, it is, according to anybody that is. Let's see. How do we refer to left of center? Right. If the right is right, then left is wrong in any event. But and again, that I am naturally segueing into this whole Hunter Biden thing.
Yeah, right? Let's get into it. Get into it.
Well, I mean, is did the world stop? Because Hunter Biden is guilty, right?
Oh.
La guillotine. Oh.
So okay, wait, I got a question. Okay, you go first, and then I have a question.
Ladies first.
Okay.
Ladies first.
Do you think Joe is going to pardon his son?
Oh, absolutely. So here's what's going to happen. Again, Lord Benjamin can unearth the various episodes with which we have been saying this. They allowed the guilty verdict to go through, or they pursued it. They're going to use the guilty verdict against his son to force Joe Biden to step down from the ticket for re-election. As part of that, they'll provide political cover that he can pardon his son before he leaves office. And the other side of that is that they will threaten to destroy his family and his wealth that he built up clearly now from China and Ukraine, based on the laptop being real, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yep.
Right. And that's the lever they're going to use. So yes, I do believe that he will be pardoned, to answer your question.
And interestingly enough, Robert, this is another topic we didn't used to be able to talk about on YouTube. It would get you a community guideline strike and possibly kicked off of the internet. And
well,
once again,
it turns
it turns out it's true. Turns out it's true. YouTube, it's true. In a court of law, he's proven guilty. Okay. Anyway.
Well, by the way, go to CNN. There's an article on CNN that goes after the fact that the only reason Hunter Biden was brought up for trial is because they went after him for years and years and years until they found something that would stick. Does that sound like anything anybody else you remember?
I've been having deja vu our entire show today.
Is this like deja vu all over again?
Wait, what's that movie? What's that movie that where the guy can't remember anything and he plays the day, or Memento? That's what I feel. We're living in Memento. So wait,
here I thought you were talking 50 First Dates.
No, is Hunter Biden a felon now?
Well, according to CNN, it's an the alleged crime, even though he's now been found guilty. So, again, I don't want to parse words. It depends on what the meaning of the word is, which is sort of seems to be the new democratic standard. Again, the thing that sticks out to me in all of this, right, is a couple of things. Number one, the laptop is real.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, you had these intel officers who put out that letter. Remember, right before the last debate, right before the election.
Yep.
Right. I think the New York Post broke the story.
Yep.
And they basically, because this is the intel community, they basically, they parsed every word and this has all the earmarkings of, and this has this of, and it looks like and it could be, and there's other corroborating evidence that would lead this to believe that this is accurate. They never came out and said it was accurate, but don't you know that the Biden campaign then ran with it? And if you remember, Sleepy Joe brought it up at the debate. When Trump accused him of it, he said, well, I have 50, former intel officers who says that what he says isn't true, right? Never to redact. But here's the fun part. And by the way, James Clapper, Brennan, CIA director, Leon Panetta, who I used to have a whole lot of respect for in all of this, right? Basically, quote, the Hunter Biden's laptop has all the classic earmarks of Russian disinformation and everyone is declining to quote or retracting. One person went on to say, the attorney who represents them all says that every patriotic American should have signed this letter, and a careful and objective reading of the document reflects that even today, its content is accurate. It served as nothing more than a warning letter of what we have known for decades, that certain governments, including Russia. I mean, you want to talk about whitewashing this? This is another example of, depends on what the meaning of the word is. Right? I mean, you can't have it both ways. So anyways, I know I'm running on.
No, what are those guys going to get prosecuted? All those guys who made up a lie, basically. No. I mean, isn't that like lying to Congress, perjury?
They look. Anton Blinken, right? Anthony Blinken, right? Secretary of State, is the guy that went around to get everybody to sign these letters when he was working for the Biden campaign.
Yeah.
2 guys wrote it. Everybody else signed it. That's what they basically said. But here's the other thing that I think that they're not understanding, or the American public doesn't understand, right? Okay. Depends on what the meaning of the word is. Well, the letter didn't really say that, but the Biden campaign ran with it and the media covered it. And I mean, there's this sort of unspoken sort of synchronicity. The American public, if you're listening, you were played for suckers. They're playing us for suckers.
That's right.
That's what this is. How do you like being played for suckers? I don't, right? And again, we find out some almost 3 years later, right before the election, it really was true. Right before the 2016 election, Hillary really did destroy her emails in her server, and she bleached the hard drive and she destroyed the other one with a hammer. But no, there was no classified information in there. How much of this has to drop before America says, like you're seeing in Europe, this all ties together to this rising populism, and why January 6th scares the crap out of the sort of the politicians or your betters or whatever you want to call these people. When have you had enough of being played for a sucker? Because we're being played for suckers. That's what this is.
Yep. That's right. You know who else gets played for suckers? Anybody who lets socialism creep into their country, y'all. So let's hear from our supporter, ASIC.
Socialism. The goal of socialism is communism. The world is quite familiar with socialism and the horrors socialism has brought with it. It wasn't that long ago. Actually, it's still with us. Socialism creeps into government slowly until it's too late. Socialism, the big lie. Yes, it could happen anywhere. This educational video was brought to you by the American Center for Education and Knowledge and paid for by people like you who care about the future of our democracy. Please help us continue our work educating the American public and consider supporting ASIC by making a tax-deductible donation at asicfund.org. Yeehaw!
That's
okay.
right.
So
That's
I want to
right.
go back to this Hunter Biden laptop. So Hunter's guilty. The laptop is real, right? It
Yep.
raises a couple of questions, but one of the things that the letter said, right, are the following. Our view that the Russians are involved in the Hunter Biden email issue is consistent with two other significant data points as well. According to the Washington Post, citing 4 sources, U.S. intelligence agencies warned the White House last year that Rudy Giuliani was the target of an influence operation by Russian intelligence. They cited anonymous sources to justify something that the paper wrote and the intelligence agents. I mean, this is like a circle jerk, right? This is so. Look, this is no different than the Steele dossier, right?
Wow,
they plant 2 different stories about the Steele dossier. One in the media, one in the intelligence agency, right? They have Steele, contact the CIA. And then the CIA says, oh, there must be something to it because it's also being leaked and reported into the press, not understanding, or maybe they are understanding that there's the connection they plan in both places and one reinforces the other. Does the word sucker come to mind again?
Golly.
So,
wow.
Right?
Wow. Yeah.
So it raises another question, though, right? Here's the other question. So if we know that the laptop is real, and we now know that Hunter Biden, contrary to what Joe Biden said during the debates that my son never got any compensation, got several $1 million. I think it was 2.1 million in 1 year and 2.4 million from the Chinese government and or Chinese owned companies, right? And then obviously there's the cut for the big guy, if you remember. So if we now know the laptop is real, and you now know that Hunter Biden actually was getting money from Ukraine and Burisma and was getting money from China, so is Joe Biden a puppet presidency?
I don't know how else you read the information that has been coming out over the last, few years. He literally is in bed with all of these countries that are supposedly corrupt, that supposedly are our enemy or whatever, and yet he's getting money from them. So
well, they're going to say, well, you can't prove. So now it's going to be a hard edge that's going to say, well, you can't prove that Joe Biden got any money. His son got money, right? Of course, where there's smoke, there's no fire, of course. And again, it sort of goes back to this whole election integrity thing. Well, a court of law hasn't ruled, so therefore there's no proof. And I don't want to get into the whole whether the election was fair or not, but it's the same sort of mythical standard that they're trying to get people to believe. Well, it didn't happen because a court of law didn't rule that it happened. So, and by the way, a court of law didn't rule that Hunter Biden received $2.1 and $2.4 million from China or from Ukraine or whatever, but it came out in trial. It's an uncontested fact. Let's see the media bury that as Russian disinformation.
Robert, I am just okay. Lord help me.
Come on, you're speechless. I love it.
I'm gonna be praying every day for this country as we approach the election. Somebody in the comments said that they think Joe will quit before the election so Kamala can win. I think it's gonna be somebody like Gavin Newsom or something like that. Y'all pray for your country.
Wait a minute. Are you channeling Robert? You're now going with my Gavin Newsom position?
Oh, I definitely think it's going to be gruesome Newsom.
Well, look, here's who it won't be. To our one listener who we know is out there. Here, I'm sorry, Jay. I'm sorry. So they'll be held to pay. So it will not be Kamala Harris.
No way.
Because
nobody likes her.
Because the Democrats don't want to lose. Now it might be, yeah, Michelle Obama. I
No,
would
it
get
won't. Shut up.
wait a minute.
Shut up.
Wait.
Okay, okay. Okay, okay.
How can I talk if you're telling me to shut up?
Shut up doesn't
It's
really
like,
mean shut up. It means say more.
Is that like when you say fine, you're not, or when you say whatever?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I'm a woman. You should expect that what I'm saying is the opposite of what I'm saying.
Where's Helen Reddy when we need her?
What I mean.
I know I'm dating myself with references, but look, it's not going to be Kamala Harris. She is universally disliked, and the one voting block that the Democrats cannot afford to lose. Look, I would argue they can't afford to lose, the black voting block or the Hispanic voting block, but they cannot afford to lose suburban women. And Kamala Harris does not poll well with suburban women. They don't like her, right?
Yep.
More suburban women would vote for Michelle Obama. I find that to be unfathomable to me, but it is what it is. So it's either Michelle Obama, and I do not think that she will sacrifice her newfound lifestyle
not
to
a chance.
Come back in office. So I think it's Gavin Newsom. I don't think it's anybody else. But again, let's go back to this. They will use the guilty verdict to pressure Joe Biden to withdraw himself from the ticket. It's not going to be announced that way. He's going to have a medical issue. He's going to freeze again on camera. They'll slip him a Mickey or something, and he'll pass out at an event, something like that. And then, of course, they're going to blame this on Russian disinformation, that he didn't really, it was a body double. Right? So
here's what I do know. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. I'm here for it. I got my popcorn.
So I want to move the show along to one more Russian disinformation.
Ooh.
One more.
Ooh,
because
more
you realize
talk.
Niet, which is no. But I just told you my one word of Russian. But das vidanya, a couple things. But in any event, do you know we have tomorrow there will be Russian warships and a nuclear submarine right off the southern coast of the United States? In Cuban waters, Caribbean waters in Cuba.
Modern day missile crisis.
You're stealing my lines.
I totally stole it.
Is another Cuban missile crisis, Sans Bay of Pigs, hopefully, going to happen? So again, this is the news media. So take it. 3 Russian Navy ships and a nuclear-powered vessel will arrive at the port of Havana for an official visit on Wednesday.
It's vessel. It's not vessel.
Okay.
It's
vessel. Well, okay. So I don't know. Now, it's the first coordinated air and sea exercise by Russia in the Western Hemisphere in 5 years. So, guys, it's not like they haven't done it before. But at this time, they're going to hold military drills. Now, that's not what Cuba is saying. So, I mean, can you imagine? So, why is the press not reporting this? If they're so paranoid about Russia, and everything is either Russian disinformation or Russia's fault, or Vladimir Putin is the worst dictator in the history of mankind, why aren't they reporting on this? This is folks. Why aren't they reporting on this?
Well, and what's even, I don't know. But here's what's interesting is while we have millions of illegal aliens pouring across our border, an invasion, you might say, we now have Russian warships heading to South America. I mean, who knows?
South America. They're not going to South America. They're coming to the U.S. They're coming
Central
to the Caribbean.
America.
They're going to be in the Caribbean. They're going to be 90 miles.
I know, but this is what I'm
off
saying.
Of the U.S. coast.
Sorry, I'm misspeaking. I'm speaking in generalizations. My point is, they're going to be in the same area where we have a bunch of illegal aliens pouring across our border, not to mention they're going to be in missile distance from our country after having basically found that U.S. munitions were used inside of Russia.
Well, a couple problems with that. Number one, it's not like U.S. troops used U.S. munitions inside of Russia. I don't know the factual basis of the munitions, but let's take it at face value. It's a little different when a Russian destroyer and a nuclear submarine, which, by the way, the article says, but don't worry, the intelligence community has already confirmed that it's not carrying nuclear warheads. This is the same intelligence community that told us that the Russian laptop was the Biden laptop was disinformation, right? This is the same.
Yeah, how would they know?
Intelligence community that said that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Yeah. So show me where they've got one of these right. And look, I'm not like, do I think that Russia's going to launch an ICBM or an SLBM? No, but
here's the thing. Russia is at war right now. Why would any of their military apparatus be somewhere?
Assets. The word is assets. Military assets.
Thank you. Why would any of their military assets be anywhere other than where they are engaged in conflict?
Well, that's simple. They want to stick. Look, in foreign policy, we have said this over and over again. Right? Weakness breeds aggression in others.
That's right.
Joe Biden's weakness as a president, Joe Biden's decisions to cozy up to Iran, and by the way, let's go back, because the whole puppet presidency, I don't think he's really the one making the decisions. But again, we can peel back that onion a little bit, on another show even more. But the Biden administration is cozying up to Iran. The Biden administration is busy pressuring Israel to accept a ceasefire pretty much on any terms. Right. The Biden administration is, even with, they've done some sanctions on audio only, some sanctions on China, but basically placated China and been dressed down by China several times. So Putin may be many things. He is not stupid. He is an aggressive leader. And look, he is pro-nationalist Russia. You got to give him credit for that, but he is sticking in the eye of the Biden administration and their feckless foreign policy for the last 3.5 years. So of course he's going to stick thumb in his eye. What did you expect?
Exactly. I mean, that we literally, not only do we make them the bad guy in every single movie and have, like, for the history of ever, right? We just listen to these fools for the last 7.5 years be like, Russia, P-tapes and prostitutes. And like, bruh, what do you think? Like, oh my God, they're going to, if I was Putin, I'd be like, you too.
Ooh, I love the bleep. Did you just beep yourself?
I did.
Look, to me, the loss of opportunity or the loss of the potential is the U.S. foreign policy and the obsession of the Democrats with Russia in an endeavor to damage and hurt Donald Trump and retain power pretty much single-handedly drove Russia into China's camp. Say what you want, and Russia is not, the perfect actor on the world stage. The United States is not the perfect actor on the world stage. This is still geopolitics. This is still real politic, capital R, small k, right? An old German concept about an enemy of my enemy is my friend. And in a world, and we've detailed this, that is no longer unipolar, it is multipolar in terms of different centers of power. And certainly China is vying for hegemony against the US. We pushed Russia into China's camp. Yeah. I think that's undeniable.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And that's not to say that, like, oh, well, then bad things are justified, because that's definitely not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I understand, as Chris Rock would say. Or no, wait, was it Chris Rock? Or no, it was the dude that got slapped by Will Smith on stage.
The dude that got slapped.
Benjamin, I'm talking to you.
I think that was Chris Rock.
Well, it was Chris Rock. Yeah. So as in the words of Chris Rock, I understand.
Well, look, I'm not sure I supported the slap or didn't support the slap, but at least there were consequences, which is another big beef with me. Which is a great segue to our last segment, at least before we become unvarnished and unhinged after hours. Did you hear the thing in New York City where there was this pride parade and a banker is walking back. It's in Brooklyn in Park Slope. Guy's walking back. He makes some comment about you guys are on the wrong side, and they surround him and they throw like paint and stuff on him. And there's a video circling the internet where he knocks out or knocks down, punches some woman, breaks her, I don't know, nose or teeth or whatever. And it's all over the internet. You didn't see that one?
No.
Oh, come on.
Oh, we're going to have to talk about. Okay.
So Queers for Palestine.
Oh, Lord.
Brooklyn cell phone shows a man punching a woman in the face on the sidewalk on the outskirts of a pride event. Anti-Israel march in Park Slope around 11:30 p.m. on Saturday. Jewish guy, of course, right? I mean, always, So you got to look this up. And I think his name, they doxed the guy eventually. Jonathan K. is the guy's name, right? Okay. And they surround him. They throw fake blood on him. He's wearing a nice suit. They throw fake blood on him. Somebody knocks him to the ground. His leg is bleeding. He gets up, pushes one guy out of the way, and he punches this woman right in the face, who was part of the mob, right?
I mean,
so
equal rights.
Well, first of all, I have railed for a long time that there are no consequences. There's starting to be consequences, right? You're starting to see people fight back because, look, I'm not saying what the guy did was right or wrong, but look, the mob mentality is simple. If you're
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, no, you're gonna say it.
If you're surrounded by look, and my fighting background, right? So if you're surrounded by a mob, it's the only way out of that. First of all, you got to get out of the circle. And the only way out of the circle is you got to go after one person. You make them an example, and you take them out, and then you get out of the circle. Right? Yeah. Because when you're surrounded, you have to get out of the circle because you don't know sort of where this is coming from, which is what he did. So to me, it was just a question of self-defense. Yeah. Right. But it's also that people are fed up with this crap now.
That's right. Take it.
So, right.
Yeah.
So here's my question to you, though. Marrying this whole concept of this rising populism or the anger that's leading to a rise in this populist sort of uprising at the voting booths across the world in different countries, with sort of this whole no consequences culture that have been cultivated for the last 4 years, I would argue, since Obama, right? Going back to let's find psychiatrists to determine why are people jumping the turnstiles, right? It's all related. Is vigilante justice coming back?
Ooh, well, you're going to have to join us on the free speech platforms of Rumble and Twitter to find out our answers to that question.
How's the hook? Is that a good hook?
That was good. That was good, you guys.
Is there vigilante justice coming to this country?
All right.
The question.
So join us, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna leave you on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Join us on Rumble and Twitter for after hours while we answer that question. In the meantime, if you've watched the video this long, we thank you for joining us, and we do ask that you go ahead, like the video, share the video with people that you know, and most importantly, do subscribe. It does not cost you anything. We're not asking you to join anything. Just click the subscribe button. It makes sure that you get notifications of when we go live and when we post new videos so that you never miss a thing. All right, and it looks like we are just about off of every